Hey everyone, welcome to my stream. So, I don't know if you guys have been watching. If you guys have been watching the AGDQ streams on Twitch, I've been totally into that. If you guys don't know what that is, it's the games done quick thing that they do. It's like a week-long event where a bunch of speedrunners come together and do a bunch of speed runs and raise money for cancer, for curing cancer. Anyway, it's really fun. You should totally check it out. It's just look for AGDQ or GDQ on Twitch. Yeah, been really enjoying that. Saw something really cool today where this is like a first time thing where they did like they call it like a tutorial run where they had like someone who is, a speedrunner who really knows how to do speedruns, and he chose to teach someone who I guess doesn't do speedruns. I kind of missed the beginning, but I think they just maybe picked someone from the audience, or I don't know how they selected this person, but they showed somebody who had never ever played Strider on the NES, and then the speedrunner like spent half an hour kind of walking him through the game and showing him how to do all these like tricks, these input tricks and stuff to teach him how to finish the game. And then after that, he let him actually play the game. Now it would have been his second time playing it, and just try and do the speed run on his own. And he finished the game in like 8 minutes or something. And that was really cool, and it was fun for those of us watching because we actually get to learn how to do the speed run ourselves. So I thought that was a pretty cool idea. Anyway, I really like that kind of stuff. So a couple days ago, Meshu Gasha, I don't know how to say your name. I'll call you Meshu. Meshu asks, is that like OpenGL? Sorry, so he was asking me about if I am a demo scener and if I've done Commodore 64, which I haven't, and I told him I have a Vectrex. He asked if I had a C64, Commodore 64. Excuse me. Which I don't. I don't have a Commodore 64, but I do have a Vectrex. I can say Brad Pitt. All right. Anyways, I don't have a Commodore 64, but I do have a Vectrex, which is an old video game console, which is and my stream is basically me writing an emulator for this console. So it looks like this. Meshu says he doesn't really I think he doesn't know what it is, because he says is like OpenGL. No. Well, are you asking if I'm not sure what you're asking me, but Vectrex is this piece of hardware. Now my emulator is using OpenGL to emulate it, but I don't think that's what you're asking me. So anyway, a couple of days ago, I was working on this, and yeah, that's right. We were looking at. I have this list here. Where is it? Oh, yeah, compatibility list of games, the commercial release ROMs, and I have a bunch of problems with them. So yeah. So I have a bunch of ROMs that I'm testing, and we picked one, I think it was Pole Position, which had an invalid read. So it turned out that this is actually in the original cart itself. So it's not actually a problem with my emulator. The cart itself does an invalid read. The best codes I've seen? Like a poet. Like a poem? What are you referring to, Meshu? What is the best code you've seen? So yeah, that's basically this Pole Position actually has some invalid code that actually does invalid reads, and on real hardware that just doesn't really matter. I don't know what it returns, but it seems not to have affected the game. And so if I ignore the invalid read, Oh, also Meshu was talking about me. Man, I'm so serious. You are my role model. Your code is too much clean code. Thanks, man. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate that. Clean code is like a poem. Awesome, man. I was fascinated. Thank you very much. It's a very nice thing to say. I do take pride in writing good, clean code. And I mean, it's not perfect. I definitely have a couple of corners that I'm not too happy about, but you know, over time, try to clean that up. But thank you very much. It's very nice to say. So yeah, so yeah, but basically all that to say is that what I ended on last time was that in places like here in the cartridge where we do this like fail message for writes to cartridge ROM not allowed, and I think I have another one for the read here or not. Oh yeah, this assert message here, for example, or specifically in this case, it's in the invalid. What is it again? Unmapped. Sorry, unmapped memory device. Yeah, in here, these fail messages, like I temporarily replaced them with just prints, like error F with just prints, and now I was able to get through, and it's just spams this stuff. And I was just thinking about that last week about what I want to do here, and what I would like to do is rather than call these functions, I would like to call another function and configure like what the emulator should do. Should it just, you know, be silent? Should it print, or should it actually cause a failure? Because a fail or an assertion, in the case of my emulator, will actually end up throwing an exception, which is then caught by my debugger. And hey, PyroEsp, how's it going? Welcome to the stream. So yeah, so that basically there are three ways in my mind to handle this. And I think I even wrote it down, yeah. I wrote it down here. Invalid read-write policy. Do nothing, which could be like the default. Print or fail, which is like throw an exception and get caught to the debugger. So yeah, that's sort of what I want to fix right now, and then after that we could test a few of these ROMs that were causing these problems and see if they actually work better. And the reason why I don't want to just ignore them always is because it's possible that some of these failures can help us to detect and find real bugs in my emulator. Hey, what's up, Michael C? Thanks for joining again. Michael C actually was helpful a couple nights ago in making me realize that maybe the ROM was the problem, right, and not my code. Now, so you got a 3 a.m. You got to go to bed, PyroEsp. Well, thanks for dropping by for a little bit. So yeah, I started implementing this last week, and sorry, a couple nights ago, and wasn't sure exactly how to go about doing that. Michael C says it's 2 a.m. So for me, it's 9 p.m. here. So yeah, very different time. Oh, okay, Michael C is watching me on the phone using the Twitch app. 5:20 for Meshu. So you're I guess more West Coast. Right, not YouTube. All right, so how do I want to do this? Oh, in Turkey, okay. Oh, you meant 5:20 in the morning? That's quite early. So, Yeah, I said I was gonna think about how I was gonna do this, and I thought about it for like a few minutes. And I didn't really decide exactly what I want, how I want to implement this. So I was sort of going down this route of writing a kind of a file with like error handling and kind of like abstract the concept of error handling. Oh, 5:30 p.m. I guess I'm like way off in terms of my my time zones. Oh right, of course. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, sorry about that. Not sure how I want to do this. Trying to think, what is this, the class of errors that I want to log here? Like, do I want to be really specific and say these are like invalid access errors? Or do I want to go a bit more broad and be like, these are just, you know, emulator errors, and when those occur, I may want to break into my debugger because it's like something unexpected, or maybe it is something expected. It's a class of errors that could happen, you know, like for real in real hardware, like these kinds of invalid accesses, you know? A little bit like, for example, in the CPU, if there's a unknown CPU instruction that gets executed, right? That I would want to catch it, but in my final version, I may want to just ignore it. Meshu asks if I'm using Notepad. You mean this? This is just my my to-do list. So right now I'm thinking about this task right here at the top. This is really like not very formal. I just kind of jot down things I'm thinking about doing. Some of these are old. Probably won't do some of these. Things I've done, I just move them to the bottom to this like done section. Very low tech. Low tech solution. So yeah, like I was saying, these are kind of like things that could happen in real hardware, and in those cases we don't want to fail, but it may also be that it's a bug in my emulator, so I want to have this kind of policy for those kinds of errors, and I'm not sure what to call those, you know? It's like you know, emulator exception. unexpected. Another thing I was thinking is, should it be part of like a kind of a logging layer, you know? Kind of have some kind of like logger. Maybe it's like a hardware exception or something. Maybe just something like hardware exception F or something. Yeah, I'll start with something like that, and we'll see where it goes. Like it would be something like here. We go to unmapped memory device. Copy what I did in here. This, by the way, is a cute little trick that I figured out for, because I like the printf style formatting, and it's faster than using std_cout. Like using the C++ ones there, the IO streams. But it's always been annoying to kind of like forward the VA list and the VA args and all that to have like a function that then calls another one. But actually using variadic templates since C++11 actually makes it really trivial to do so. So I kind of like that. So that's what I'm doing in these functions here, you see. So you kind of do this. And you know, now you just literally can call like fprintf and you just pass it the expanded arg. So it's really just forwarding them, you know. And I guess technically I should std forward these, but don't think it's really a big deal. Where is it? Shouldn't be a big deal in this case. Okay, so let's say we had something like this, right? And then the idea would be to choose between the different policies. Now, I don't know like who's gonna manage those policies, but let's say those policies were just controlled by some enum class for now. It would be like ignore, which could be our default, log or print or whatever. Let's say log, and let's say, what had I written here? Print or fail. Could do that. Print, ignore, show, maybe, fail, print, log, I don't know. Let's say log. So this is a error handling policy, I suppose. And let's just say for now we'll keep it a global variable. So we'll say so right now it would fail there. So ignore it, we do nothing. We break and not braille. Policy. So for logging, we'll error F. And for failure, we'll do, what was I doing? Fail with message. Same idea. So something like this. So this would become, I don't know why it's not auto-completing, probably because I have an error somewhere. Let's see, does this build? It does build. IntelliSense. This happens sometimes where my IntelliSense database gets corrupt. I'm just gonna go clean that up. I think it's this here, browse.vc. There we go. So like, rather than calling fail or error, we call error handler, hardware exception, and we pass in our thing here. And then similarly, you know, I'll just replace it. Here we go. So it would look like this. Now right now it's going to end up, yeah, policy. Why did this, oh, because I just called it. That's why it was compiling before, but not failing, because I had not called the function. All right, so that builds. So like right now, based on what we set the policy to, it will cause a failure when we run pole position. I think I didn't. So let's grab this ROM and let's actually configure Vectrexy to launch it. Okay, so there we go. So let's see, exception caught, assertion failed. And that happened because we did a fail message. Now, if instead we change our, right now this global policy to say log, yeah, I'll just speed this up a bit. Yeah, so you see now there's a whole bunch of logs going on, but the game works. And finally, of course, if we set this to ignore, now it'll work and we should get no logging. So now we should see, yeah, no output whatsoever. So that works. Not super crazy about the name, because I mean, hardware exception, there is such a real concept. It's not really an exception. I don't know what to call it, if you guys have ideas. But basically, like I said, the concept is, it's something that can happen, you know, at the hardware level. Like, we may read, the CPU may emit a read from an address that's not mapped. But sometimes we want to know about it because it may point to an actual bug, or say you're a developer and you want to make sure your cart is not doing something weird. You may want it to fail on those. But when we're running commercial ROMs, which may have these bugs in them, we want it to go and silently proceed forward, kind of thing, you know? So I don't know what to call that. Michael C says undefined. Yeah, that's actually not bad, right? Like undefined behavior. That's true. That's a good name for it. Maybe I'll just remove this F. Not really necessary. Error handler undefined. Yeah, I like that. Thanks, Michael C. Okay, so I'll move this into an error handler header file. I need here? Console out. And I need to include base because that's where fail message I think is defined. Yeah. And that's it. Okay. Now I need to think about how to set policy. So I have a few options there. Like one of them is just, preprocessor or just mess around in the compiler. The other way I was thinking was potentially controlling that value from the debugger. Maybe have like a function, like a set error handler policy or something. And another way would be to just have like an option. I have yet to really do anything with that. So I won't do that just now, but that's sort of where I'm headed with this. And by the way, I don't know if you guys noticed this, those of you who are, C or C++ programmers, but I'm making use of another really sweet feature that comes with C++ 17, which is inline variables. And this is the thing that allows me to define a global variable to both declare, define, initialize, and all that in one line here without needing to do the whole extern and then, to declare with an extern and define in some CPP. So this is not like a static. This is it's the same thing as doing an extern of this and having one instance of this defined in a CPP file, all in one line. So this is really great for global variables, which, to be fair, we're not supposed to be using lots of global variables, but when you do need to use them, it is nice to be able to do this. So we'll do this here, and let's go to what was my other one? Ah, it's already insert. Here. Yeah, of course here I have this one with a condition. So I'm gonna have to put an if statement here. That's fine. And we'll replace this fail message with this. See, like illegal instruction is another one. We could change this one as well. They all kind of fit into this mold, right, of undefined behavior. And then the question is, what do we do here, right? I guess we just return. Don't know how many... Or I guess I could return the number of cycles that it might be running. Yeah, that's fine. And actually I have others like this. I remember in the Via, I had stuff like this. I think, if I recall. Yeah, maybe some of these. But I'm not going to change them just yet because I don't get these too often, so if I get them, I'll think more about whether it makes sense to do this. But these ones definitely. So let me just put a log for now, and let's just try a couple ROMs and see what this looks like. So we know that pole position, it works when we, except for the input there. This one will work, and it'll start logging stuff. Or what? Oh, I'm missing. Oh, okay, I'm missing. Ah, right, because my asserts didn't put new lines implicitly. Is that why? Because I just didn't care for those ones. Yeah, I'm gonna put the new lines in. Oh, whoops. What did I just do? Oh, my keyboard went into numlock mode. And this guy here. Okay, you know what guys? Just give me a sec, I'll be right back. Yeah, sorry guys. Not a pee break, but a phone call. All right, so what was I doing? Yes, all right, that's right, the new line. That's it, I was checking here. I think I have another one here. I have to put a new line on and actually remove this assert now that I see it. Yeah, no, I know, Meshu. I know you're joking. Okay. It feels like this is like worse than before. Why is that? Cartridge read. Oh. Yeah. It's because when you replace an assert, you gotta invert your logic, right? Which is why I had done that here. I was asserting that it's not equal to legal here if it is equal, but here I was checking if the mapped address is actually in range. And that's why it wasn't working. Okay, now it should be good. Yeah, so that's back to how we were before. So let's say we try scramble. So this one I had an invalid cartridge read here at 1000 hex. So let's see what happens now. Yeah, Meshu, you can ask anything. You have a question for game dev beginners? Hey, look at that. The game actually works. And we can see that there's like total spammage here of invalid cartridge reads here. So, you know, the game seems to be working. So then the question becomes, is this really something that the cartridge does, the actual release cartridge just did, and you know, and it's just, you know, undefined behavior. We could see that it's always reading 1000, 123, 1000, 123, right? I'm beginning game dev. I have little 2D games like Tetris, Pong, Block Breaker, and I want to learn game engine development, modern C++. Can you suggest for me any books, tutorials? When you say you have little 2D games, you mean you've written these games, and you've done them in C++ or like Unity, C# or something? I'm trying to think about books, like, because the thing is, I learned C++ quite a long time ago. So the books that I read back then are no longer as relevant, I would say. But there are a few books I know that are pretty good for learning C++. I know that I've heard that a tour of C++ by Bjarne Stroustrup is supposed to be pretty good. Oh, so you did it with C++. Okay, so you already know C++, and you'd used SDL2. Okay, so that's actually a pretty big leg up you've got there. So you already have learned C++, and you've already been able to make games, and you just kind of want to learn a bit more, and you want to be able to write your own game engines instead of using SDL2, I suppose. So yeah, I know this book here, I've heard good things. It's not a very big book, and I don't know if this is the latest one, but Bjarne wrote, he's the creator of C++, and he has 2 books that he's written. This is one of them, and this is like not a very thick book, and it kind of goes through the things that have been introduced in the latest, in like modern C++. So C++ 11, 14, I think it covers 17. Not sure, probably not. Now that I think about it, 17 was only ratified this year. Actually, from here it looks like it's C++ 11. So that's a tour of C++. And then he has, of course, the big book, the C++ programming language. And I don't know, I haven't read this book. I mean, I hear it's a very good reference. I don't know if it's a good like learning tool, maybe. Yeah, so, oh, and you've read Effective Modern C++. So, you know, if you've read Effective Modern C++, I was actually going to recommend that one. That one I've also read by Scott Myers, right? So you pretty much have like the modern stuff covered in that book. You know, so now like there's just maybe the delta to C++ 17, and for that you can just read about it online, right? And you know, the best way to learn any of these things is to just try programming in it. That's actually what I'm doing. You know, I don't get to use C++ 17 at work because it's brand new and we need to wait a bit before all the compilers support it and all that. So I just, you know, for my toy projects like this emulator, that's where I get to play with it and get to play with these new features, you know? So that's on the topic of C++, but you also mentioned game engine development. So yeah, that's a much bigger topic. I'm not sure what good books there are on writing game engines. And as you know, like there's so many topics in there. Like, do you want to learn about, you know, 3D rendering, or do you want to learn more about just the kind of like the structure of a game engine? You know, like dealing with your scene graphs and hierarchically, you know, your hierarchical transforms and how to manage that kind of thing. I remember there was a book, it's pretty old now I guess, but it was about like game architecture, or game engine design or architecture. So yeah, this book, I haven't read it, but I know game engine architecture. This book by Jason Gregory. This guy, Jason Gregory, is actually, or at least was, the lead programmer at Naughty Dog. Really smart guy. And I actually had the privilege to work with his code. And I even wrote to him back when I worked at EA. So he's a really smart dude. So this is probably a good book. I haven't read it. But yeah, like that's the thing. I learned a lot about writing games and game engines and stuff by working in the game industry. So it's kind of difficult, like, for me to recommend specifically a book for that. You want to learn game engine component names like graphics, sound, inputs. I'm guessing a book like this is probably going to cover that kind of thing. There was another one. But it's been a long time. Yeah. I would check out this game engine architecture by Jason Gregory. It seems to be popping up in a lot of places here. I don't know. Like I said, another thing you can do, now the Unreal Engine is open source, so you can go and get the source code to Unreal Engine and just kind of start exploring that code. It's a very big code base, but definitely it's a full game engine, right? So if you're wondering about naming and how that works, you can see what they do. And I say that Unreal Engine 4, I don't particularly agree with a lot of their design choices and how they do things, but it is a very successful game engine and definitely a reference. So I don't know if that helps you. Yeah, very big code, definitely. Another thing you can just do is look at SDL2 source code. I don't know if you looked at the source code for SDL2, but it's all in there. And that's a pretty, not such a big code base, There's another engine that people use for making 2D games that's also open source. I forget what it is. It's like it supports sprites and all that. It's more for 2D games, I think, but I think you could make 3D with it. There's also Ogre, the Ogre 3D engine. This one here, it's a pretty old engine now, but I think it's been kept up to date. Yeah. You should look at this code as well. This is a long time running open source 3D game engine. I think much easier to grok this code than it would be the Unreal Engine. And you'll see like how things are named and stuff. So check out Ogre as well. But yeah, man, no problem. Okay, so what I want to do now is I'm gonna commit what we just did. Ogre 3D is interesting for you now? Yeah, I think you'll have some fun with that. I looked at that code base like maybe 10 years ago, and it looked pretty good. I was looking at how they did animation, and I messed around a little bit with Ogre and 3D Studio Max and exporting animations and stuff, and it looked pretty decent. I haven't like written a game or done very much with it, so I can't speak to that, but it seems to be relatively successful. Okay. Oh man, no problem. Anytime. Always ready to help anyone who wants to learn to program and make games, and that's part of the reason why I stream here, right? Yeah, maybe log is a decent default. I don't know. I'll leave it like that for now, because that's probably what I'm going to leave it to most of the time. Okay, and now let me update my compatibility list and go to so what we'll say here is we'll say input doesn't work, and I'll say no, I'll just say invalid reads cards or something. Invalid reads. I don't know what to say. Code error or something. Basically, what I'm trying to say is it's not my fault. And we were looking at scramble here, right? Yeah, see, that's the thing. Now I don't have a way to say, hey, stop on this invalid cartridge read and show me what happened there, because these are just being logged. So that's where I would need to be able to change the policy. If I really want to debug this, which I'm not going to do right now, I would have to change the policy so that it breaks here. So yeah, I might get to a point where if that's annoying to have to rebuild every time, I'll just make a debugger, let the debugger set that global variable with some command. Like I have these toggles here or something, I don't know, we'll see. Or maybe with set. Okay, so scramble, we'll say, I mean, it looks like it's working great. Actually, it's one of my favorite games. I want to play it a little bit more just to see how it goes. So I'll just say, and the fact is that there's a scramble B1, and usually when there's a B1, it's I think those are like patches. So let me just see if we get the same thing on scramble B1. Why am I getting a fail here? Oh, did I not handle the right? I did. Writes to cartridge ROM not allowed, exception. Did I like mess something up here? That is strange. Oh, sorry. Okay, it's another. Sorry, this is a different one. Writes to BIOS ROM not allowed. Okay, so this one actually goes. See, that looks a lot weirder, right? Write to BIOS ROM. But again, that's like an undefined behavior case. But see, that smells suspicious to me. Yeah, so it would be here. Okay, so let's do the same thing. now what? Got 2 writes to BIOS ROM, and then we got an illegal instruction, invalid cartridge read. Oh, right, I should return here. Turn 0. Yeah, in all the cases where I was doing an assertion, I wasn't caring very much about what happened next because I knew it was going to just halt right there. But now I need to consider. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's all right now. Now I need to consider what happens after the fact. We'll get there. Oh, no, not pole position. We want scramble D1. Okay, so now we're really getting into weird stuff. So here at this point, I'm fairly convinced that, like I was saying, the writes to BIOS ROM is very fishy. So this cart probably has a problem. This may be a bug in my CPU somewhere, or somewhere anyway. Yeah, probably in the CPU. Illegal instruction. Because at this point, we're actually trying to execute illegal instruction even. Yeah, so this looks like we're probably somewhere we're not supposed to be. So this is something we need to fix. Put illegal instruction here, and I'll say lots of errors, investigate. Okay, so let me just amend my previous commit with some of these here. Yeah, those two. Okay, so I said I would play a little bit of scramble. Let me just play the first one. Let me just see if I can actually get through it. So this game is really interesting. At the very bottom you have this thing that says fuel level, right? Now that's constantly going down as you fly. And then you have these tanks, these like gas tanks, these fuel tanks that if you shoot them, it increases your fuel level. Oh, and I just hit the ground. So now I have 3 lives left. So these missiles you throw down, you can only have 2 on screen at a time. So you kind of want to be careful with them because they're really useful for getting those tanks on the ground actually. It's a really fun game. It's actually an arcade game that they licensed and rewrote. See, I missed those tanks. And you really want to get enough tanks because you will run out of fuel in this game. And in fact, this game, there's like kind of 4 sections, and after those 4 sections it just reloops, and you can keep like playing over and over and over, but usually you end up dying because you end up running out of fuel. Yeah, I'm not doing super well. I can't destroy those things up there. They're like some kind of mines or something. Ah. Okay, so this is the 3rd section now. This asteroid field, but at least you your checkpoint is there. Shit. Okay, and then this is the fourth section. Now this section is quite tough because you need to go advance forward to make some of the really tight curves. But if you advance too far forward, the game is hard because these guys lift up. Some little tricky flying that's coming up. This was definitely one of my favorite games when I was as a kid playing on the Vectrex. It really stood out for me. I mean, I didn't have a huge collection of games, but okay. So this is the section right here. You have to like go down. Ah, oh, damn! Pressed the wrong button. Okay, I have 1 life left. Just hope I make it. You gotta push forward and pull back down here. Go forward, pull back down, go forward, pull back up, forward, down, and to the left. Oh, no. Missed it. Oh, okay, 0 lives. Still had a last chance. Must admit, it's not super easy with the analog here. Ah, there we go. And now basically the game starts all over, and I think I'm supposed to destroy this thing and I missed it. I think that would have actually refilled my fuel or something. Yeah, you see it I died though, but see my fuel got recharged quite a lot. So yeah, I think this game works quite well. So yeah, I'm willing to say that despite those invalid cartridge reads, that it is in a, as I wrote here, great state. But the second version here, I don't know what's going on there, so we'll have to investigate at some point. Okay, let's try Spinball, which was giving me an invalid read here. So let's see now if with the logging, how far we get with Spinball. Don't have an overlay file for this. No, sorry. Okay, so that's interesting. You see we're getting a whole bunch of invalid read from unmapped range, and an invalid cartridge read as well. Okay, so let's see if this actually works. One thing I'm noticing is, and probably related to all the spamming, is it's affecting my frame rate. Yes. Sorry, just give me a sec. Okay. Oh yeah, I played this last stream, didn't I? Whoa, what just happened? I think that's not right. Yeah, something's totally messed up here. This is not at all right. Yeah, the zooming in is completely wrong. Fascinating. I'm gonna reset again. Yeah, see, we're zooming in way too much. This is all messed up. Very interesting. Yeah, so this is really a rendering issue, it seems. Okay, let me pause that. So I'll say so we'll have to look at this. I think I had tested the Spinball B1 and B2 last time, and those seem to have worked. Let's see. Let's try B1. Really? I got an op that has 0 cycles. Which instruction is this? CPU op was null pointer. Right. Should probably be checking to see if my CPU op is invalid. It's because I don't expect it here. It would have to happen inside there. Okay, and then let me just try the B2 version just to see. Spinball B2. You find this game awesome, Meshu? It is really cool, this game, right? What's going on? This actually was working. You know, could it be that these invalid cart reads, like logging these, is causing timing issues? I thought I was playing this game last time. Can't be. Yeah, no, it's super cool, this game. The only thing is, I'm wondering, did I play it maybe using the other CPU, the Vectrex CPU, and that's why it was working? That's possible. It's possible. Just to rule it out, although it doesn't make any sense that this would be the reason. It really doesn't, because I'm not affecting timings or anything with this, so it cannot be this. But I'm just gonna rule it out. Try to ignore, not print anything. So at least, yeah, I'm not insane and it has nothing to do with that. But yeah, it could very well be that other CPU implementation. Let's see. Arrive in here again. Yeah, okay, that's fine. So let me cherry pick this. So this will be interesting. If this works, then it means that I have some bug in my CPU implementation. And oh yeah. And if that's the case, it's most likely cycle timing or something. Maybe I'm not returning the right number of cycles for some of my opcodes, and it's possible that it's taking like it's a timing related thing for that zoom in, possibly. Lots of guesswork here. This is no longer using my CPU. Ah, there you go. So that's it. I was playing this then using the Vectrex CPU implementation. So there's a bug in my CPU for sure. And this is a good ROM for us to try to figure it out with. Cool. Okay. Maybe I should try and figure that out right now. It might be fun to do. So my usual approach here is to start by using the trace and then logging with that. I'm trying to remember, what was my... I had a technique for knowing when we got to the beginning of the actual ROM that was loaded. It was like set a breakpoint on, what was it again? Okay, so that was not it. Oh, reset actually removes my breakpoints, doesn't it? Maybe I shouldn't remove breakpoints when I reset. It has been a little while since I've looked at this. And I look at the BIOS listing here. What is this weird music? Okay, yeah, this is what I was looking for. Copyright string. Warm start. Save copyright string. Clear, check for valid. Prepare to play game startup music. Display the copyright string. Display current high score if any. Display cartridge name. Jump into cartridge. This is the one I wanted to see. F0E7. So if we break, okay, first let's not clear our breakpoints on reset, so I can actually do this. Yeah. Hey, Peas and Rice. Thanks for joining. Okay, so let's see if this actually works. So if I set a breakpoint on F0E7 and then reset, continue here and then reset the game, hopefully we'll hit that breakpoint at some point. Okay, there we go. Now if we step, okay, so 4F. Is it always 4F? I guess it's not. It really does depend on the game. So what we'll do is we'll always stop at F0E7 and I'll get the address for the specific game. Yeah, that's what we'll do. So we were looking at what's it called again? Spinball? Spinball. So in fact, even the first one has the problem. Okay, so for Spinball, it's 001B. That's really where we start. So what we want to do is I think we want to do Meshu says C++ problems killing me, but it's too much funny. Am I a masochist? C++ can definitely be challenging, but stick with it. And there's definitely a lot of people who can help you, a lot of resources. But yeah, it can be a bit painful sometimes. That's for sure. It's an old language, right? It's like 40 years old when you think about it. When I do this toggle trace, that doesn't clear the trace log, but if I reset, that will clear. So maybe what I'll do is we'll start with a toggle trace, set a breakpoint, then I need to actually manually reset here. And then once broken, we want to turn back the trace. and then just continue. I really need to find a better way to do this kind of stuff, but anyway, whatever. Let's see if this works. So now we reset. So yeah, see that there's nothing in my trace log, which is good. So the next thing we do is we toggle it back on and we continue. And we break. Now we dump the trace. I think I'd stored like 1 million. I just want to dump the whole thing. Yeah. I'll call this trace Vectrex. Yeah, I'm afraid this won't line up because I had to hit start, so we're gonna have some misaligned code from the beginning, but hopefully we'll be able to line this up. And also 1 million is a lot of lines. And that is exceptionally slow. That's a lot slower than I would have expected. Let's see, what did we get here? 52 meg file. Maybe that's not so bad. We got about 350,000. That is surprisingly slow. Last time I tried this, it looked like I was able to flush out. But you know what? Maybe we'll start with the first 100,000. Let's see how that goes. Okay, so that definitely took like less time. And now we do the same thing, but with our CPU. Reset. Toggle trace and continue. Start. That's good enough. And then let's trace my CPU. And then we'll try and diff these and see what we see. Oh, that's interesting. But this may just be a red herring. Yeah. This is the problem because I'm not exactly lining up the start of the two. I need to... How do I do this? Because like right now we're getting diffs because I'm not actually capturing the two as starting at the same time. There's another way I can go about this, and it's what I've been pondering over, is rather than like compile two things, run them, and diff the trace, it would be so cool is if the emulator could just run, you know, the two CPUs and determine the difference itself, you know, just kind of run them both and see if there's ever a difference and then stop right there. But the problem with that is things like side effects to memory and all that. So I'd have to kind of do something like effectively run two emulators at the same time, which is more tricky. I've been kind of thinking about that, like how to go about that. And you know, maybe I don't need to fully run two emulators, but like maybe it's more like I run one and then the other guy, let's say I run my CPU and then I run the same instruction with Vectrex, and it attempts to do reads and writes, but I don't actually let them go through, but I still log them and I compare what it wanted to do at runtime. You know, I have, in fact, I could even compare technically these traces. Although I could at least, yeah, I could, let me see. It would be totally a hack on my debugger. Meshu says my keyboard is too expensive. Well, that's, I think, is depends on how you look at it, right? Like for me, programming is my career, it's my life, it's what I do all the time. So, you know, I spent $200 on a keyboard so I don't fuck up my wrists, because I have problems. I have some RSI issues. So for me, $200 on a tool that I'm going to use for years, every single day for hours and hours, I don't see that as too expensive, you know? So it's kind of a point of view thing. Yeah, I'm not really at a point where I can easily do this, running both CPUs at the same time. I'll think about that too. Here, what I was saying about red herring, so there's like a few things. One thing I noticed is that Vectrex will go and set the H flag differently from the way I will set it. Like in instructions that say we'll do nothing to it, or like the H is undefined, I just leave it alone. Whereas Vectrex will actually set it in those instructions. And so this is like, I looked at this in the past. Things like negate say that the H is basically the, what's it called? It's the half carry. That's it. H represents the half carry. And so instructions like negate here will say that what happens to the half carry is undefined. So I just leave it alone, whereas Vectrex will actually set the bit in those undefined cases. It seems to be what it prefers to do, but I mean, it doesn't matter. And then the other thing is differences like here, where we see that we're accessing, we're loading into B at this address, and here it's E2 and mine was at the 7F. But this may not be a problem because of the timing differences at the point when this occurred in my run versus the other run, the Vectrex run. This may just be like a value that's like a counter changing over and over, and so we're just going to keep seeing that kind of difference. Things like this, where in one case the branch was taken and one wasn't. Maybe I could do a manual lineup. Let me find it. Let me see. Here. F4, A7. Let's see all the lines that have F4, A7 in them. Oh, that's interesting. For me, it was always 3 or 83 in D0000. So that is actually rather interesting. And what about in? So that was in the Vectrex. And in my CPU, so this actually may be an interesting thing to look at. F47. '23 or A3. Actually, what? Aha, there's something weird going on here. Because you can see that my previous instruction, store B, looks like it was putting 3 into D000, but then when I decrement at D00, it's reporting that it read back 23 here, which it then decremented that to 22, but it really should have, like Vectrex here shows, read back 3 and decremented that to 2. So then that is a bug right there. That's really funky. F4, A7. Let's set a breakpoint there. Oh, so actually I should break right before it, I suppose. Yeah, sorry, F4, A5. What? Step. So that's it, supposedly wrote 3 into there. And then we got, here we got 3 back. Am I running mine right now? I thought I was. Yeah, I am running mine. Let me look more carefully at the values here. Here as well. understand. Seems when I run it here, it works. And even when I show my trace, okay, thoroughly confused here. Is it like a printing error? Alright, good job, Meshu. One week, eh? Must have been a deep problem. It reminds me of a long time ago when I first started learning programming, and I'd first learned Pascal, and then 6 months later or so I started learning C, and I was working on my first game, like graphical game, which was like a Zelda clone. And I remember I had this weird bug where I'd like, whenever I'd walk off the screen, over time I'd start getting like these. Actually, I didn't know it was related to walking off, so I would play the game, and it was like Zelda 1 where you touch the screen and you go to different screens. Hey, ABD. So yeah, you like go to different screens, and like I remember playing, and after a while I started getting like these glitchy pixels. I'm sure Bjarna will appreciate that. So anyways, I'd start getting these like glitchy pixels on screen, and I had no idea what was going on, like none. And I mean, this was like such early days. I didn't even know, what debuggers were. I had no debugger. I had just a simple compiler, and I was compiling a single C file that included all my C files. I just would use, printf style debugging, but for something like this, which was like this weird visual glitch that would occur after a while, and I didn't know why, it took me a long time. Yeah, it was a Legend of Zelda game that I was working on. Anyway, I just remember spending weeks trying to figure it out. And I wasn't working on it all the time, but like, every few nights I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna try and figure it out. And I just try and just read the code, and I never could figure it out. And then after about 3 weeks of on and off, I just remember one time staring at some code for another reason, and I was looking at this code of when my character would, when Link effectively would hit the edge of the screen, and then I would do this scrolling thing. And what I realized was that I was allowing Link to walk 1 pixel past the edge of the side of the screen, and then I would render him. But in so doing, because I was using like direct video access mode, I was writing into video memory into which I would store tile data. And so then I would end up kind of like writing into certain pixels of tile data. And so I started getting like, garbage pixels into my tiles. But it really depended where I was walking and when it happened and whether, it happened that way. And not all the tiles got messed because it depended where the tiles were, right? So it was super weird and difficult for me to figure out. I remember when I fixed it, I was like so happy. So yeah, like really not understanding what this thing is. This is my trace. I have these extra 2s in there, or 3, and I can't repro it. When I'm looking at it locally. Yeah, old days. Reminiscent. This was like 20 years ago. I was programming in like a DOS mode 13H. It was 320 by 200. So like I didn't even have square pixels. The pixels were kind of rectangular, and you'd get like a direct pointer to the VGA buffer. It was indexed mode. So it was, you'd have like a palette of 256 colors and you could pick from, I think, some 16 million colors or whatever, 16-bit color. But you could put those in palettes and show those. And I'd use like colors, palette rotation tricks to do like color cycling for my waterfall effect and stuff like that. It was fun. I learned a lot doing that. Okay, so I'm totally baffled. Don't understand how my trace can show stuff like this. You know what I should try to do? I should try to, dump this. Yeah, let's try that. Oops. So here it looks right. Let's just run this a bit longer. So still looks right. Yet in my entire trace that I did before, this is all wrong, right? See, I have 0, 3, and B, and I'm storing it here, and then when I'm decrementing it, okay, so actually, no. No, I don't know. And we can see that that value 23 really was stored in there, because later on we do an increment on 0. I mean 22 ended up being stored there. So yeah, like it thought 23 was stored from the store B here. What is going on? That's what we read back here. This is fucked up. Okay. I know what I'll try. Let me try dumping another 100,000 instructions here. Let me go take a look there. Yeah, now it's all fine. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Okay, so let's try this. Let me do this again with my CPU. We'll do another dump, and we'll diff those instead. I'm gonna chalk this up to some kind of bad dump for now. We'll see if it happens again. We dump that to this file here, and we'll go take a look at it. Oh, now it came out all right. So let's compare my CPU 2 to the Vectrex one and see if we get anything significant now. I'm probably gonna end my stream soon, guys. I'm trying to get to bed a bit earlier these days because I'm trying to like be less tired in general. Okay, so this compare is taking a lot longer than last time. I tend to stream, my normal schedule is Mondays and Wednesdays. So yeah, no, not likely that I'll be streaming before next Monday. You know, maybe I'll have a surprise stream here and there if I get a chance, but generally I try to stick to my schedule. Sorry, Meshu. But you know, you can pretty much rely on me for my schedule. So Mondays and Wednesdays around 9 p.m. Eastern Time. This is going way slower than last time. I'm not sure. I'll try and start the diff again. Let me stop that for a sec. Let me try. Let's try just, because I think maybe 100,000 is too much. Let's go with 10,000. A lot shorter, so this is probably not going to be very useful. Just want to see. I think what's happening is that it's not able to line up anything, and so it's having a really hard time. Like it's basically showing differences everywhere. Okay, now it's done. Yeah, just sees the whole thing as different. It's finding no commonality here. I need to think about a better way to do this. Put that button state mask. Just thinking about how I might be able to line up the two runs by finding the code that is querying for when we press the start button. All right, I'm gonna stop here and I'll think about this and maybe even try to figure out a little bit how to best do this. Maybe I'll think about also what I was talking about earlier, being able to run the CPU at the same time within my emulator and actually see what it does and compare mine to that one, if that's possible. Yeah, for this one it would be something like looking for when we try to read from this address on the VIA. So somewhere in the code it's going to be querying this, right? And it's going to want to be checking a specific button state and all that. And if I can figure out that code, I can maybe figure out a proper breakpoint for when we say go, you know? Or maybe... Just thinking, what if I just did like something really dumb, like how did I just miss it? Here, like if I start, I break right here and look at where we are. Like here, 1062. This might be like a point that we would only reach once we press start. So let me see if that's true. If I put a breakpoint there, disable. Sets, enable 0. Let's see. Oh, there we go. So this could be interesting. I choose some address that's some instruction that only executes after, so 1062. So that could be interesting to start from there and then do our dump of instructions. So let's replace this with a break there instead. And let's try that. So so this is the run with my CPU. So we say go. Oh, why didn't it? Oh, because it was disabled, right? Enable. Okay, and then we turn on trace. Hold it again. Yeah, toggle trace. And now we say go. Oh, we also have to disable our breakpoint. call it my trace 3. Okay, now we do the same thing with the Vectrex CPU. And now we should actually have this, hopefully the same like matching outputs in terms of the trace. Hit the breakpoint, toggle trace, disable 0, and continue. And now we say trace minus n 100,000 to trace vecx. What did I call it? Yeah, vecx 3. Load at 8081. So they don't start exactly the same. That's interesting. F4A9, F4EB. Did I do this wrong? Okay, so we're starting with a bit more similarity now, at least. Okay, so the bug is showing up in the same, around the same place. This time we're storing different values here. Store at 0, 1. Actually, it's a different location now. B had FC in it, so that gets stored at D001. And then we decrement, oh sorry, this decrements at what's in 0. So I have A1. Yeah, so once again, okay, so now it's a bit, this looks a bit cleaner. So we are storing 81 here, but when I decrement, I'm reading back A1. Basically, it's a 1-bit difference. Store A is 0. A has 81 in it. Store B, store A, load B. Okay, so this is definitely something to go off of. In this specific trace, it's last time we were looking, it was the store A, but now it's actually the store B. No, sorry, it's still the store A that's, I don't know, it looks like it's related to decrement. Something odd is going on here. Like this is right, because 81 was stored there and it retrieved 81 and then made it 80. But for me, it retrieved A1. So yeah, something funky going on. So this is definitely decrement with an address. So we're going in here. We read from the memory bus. I'm forwarding the call into here. Passing in the value by reference. It just gets negated. Is this a signed unsigned problem? This could be, couldn't it? Yeah, I'm thinking this is a signed problem because this is a signed value, right? But I'm treating it as an unsigned here. So maybe I'm not doing the proper 2's complement subtraction. Okay, 11:30. I'm gonna stop here, guys, and if keep according to schedule, I'll be back next week on Monday. So yeah, sorry for not fixing this bug, but we'll continue on this next time. So thanks for watching, guys, and take care.